Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, June 26, 2023. This is a special session of the School Board of Trustees of the School City of East Chicago. The time is 6 p.m. The place is the Administration Building, 1401 East 144th Street, East Chicago, Indiana, 46312. We're also via live stream, www.scec.k12.in.us. This is a meeting of the school board in public for the sole purpose of conducting school corporation business, and it is not to be considered a public community meeting. Roll call one, Madam Secretary, roll call.
Trustee Gomez.
Present.
Trustee Smith.
Present.
Trustee Hernandez Orange.
Present.
Trustee Gibson King.
Present.
Chairman Rodriguez.
Present. Item 2, the pledge, if we can rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we start our agenda, I'd like to have Attorney Snow sort of recite the policy in terms of public comment between agenda items. Attorney Snow?
Thank you, Mr. President. Indiana Code provides an opportunity for members of the public to comment on all agenda items as the school board meeting proceeds. In order to make a public comment on an agenda item, you need to be recognized by the president or presiding officer, and you should preface your comments by an announcement of your name and your address. You may not speak more than once on any single agenda item. All of your statements should be directed towards the board. You should not expect it to be a question and answer session, nor should you call out board members directly, individually, or by name. And obviously, if comments get out of hand, the chairman has the discretion to take control over the meeting and restore some sense of order.
Thank you, Attorney Snow. Item 3.1, approval of the agenda. Is there any comments from the audience in approving the agenda at this time? Hearing none, do I hear a motion from the board to accept item 3.1?
Madam President, I'll make a motion to accept 3.01.
Motion made by Trustee Gibson King. Is there a second?
Second.
Second made by Trustee Gomez. Is there any discussions? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, roll call.
Trustee Gomez.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez Orange.
Yes.
Trustee Gibson King.
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez.
Yes. Item 4, old business. 4.01, approval of model school conference sponsored by the International Center of Leadership and Education. Dr. Abrego.
Yes, Board President, I'd like to elaborate a little bit on the conference. The conference is held in Florida, and in order to present at the conference, schools throughout the United States have to submit an application to the committee. The committee reviews the applications, and only the best schools are allowed to present at the conference. The conference is very important to our school because the presentations revolve around school transformation, which means elevating the school from an underperforming status to a performing status. Also, it develops leadership skills in our principals, directors, coordinators, and other key members of a district leadership team. And I know that last week it said it was Disney, but it has nothing to do with Disney World or that. It just simply, the hotels it was overcrowded, so Disney offered to help with the hotel accommodations. The conference was selected by our principals because it deals with what we're trying to do in our district, and that is have all our schools become excelling schools. The principals also chose to go at this time so that it would not interfere with their normal school day. So we are requesting approval for our staff members to attend this conference.
Is there any comments from the audience on the approval of the model school conference sponsored by the International Center of Leadership and Education? Yes, sir.
Oh, just Can you, actually, they can't hear you on the recorded line, so if you can, yes, sir.
Kelly Williams, East Chicago resident, 4718 Magoon Avenue. It's my understanding that these principals are away at this conference right now, or that it's already taking place. And I'm just a general question, time-wise, why are we having to approve, it after the fact, when this should have been on the docket maybe even a month or 2 months ahead of time? They had an entire year. If it's a conference, they had an entire year to get registered for it. We should have known it beforehand, and that should be taken care of before it actually takes place. Because what happens tonight if it gets tabled? What happens tonight if, you guys decide not to pay for it? It's a timeliness.
Is there any questions, is there any other comments from the audience? Hearing none, do I hear a motion from the board to accept item 4.01?
Mr. President, I move for approval of 4.01.
Motion made by trustee Gomez, is there a second? I'll second that motion. Is there any discussion?
Yes,
Trustee Smith.
Mr. President, this approval of 4.01 could have been avoided if it had been consulted with the CFO and second, discussed with the board. These are the issues that I have with you as a superintendent. No communication with the individuals that plays an important part in finances and approval of items within this district. We have to show accountability to State Board of Accounts, why, when, and where. Until you understand that we are your boss, we will always have this kind of confusion unless you feel you already have the 3 votes. You can do anything without questions. Thank you, Mr. President, for researching this item and doing what should have been done by the superintendent to clear up this matter. 57 pages, the president emailed each one of us so that we would have a clear understanding of this, which should have been done by our superintendent, which is our leader of our district. And thank you, Vanessa, Trustee Orange, for getting the correct personnel to attend.
Is there any other comments?
Chairman,
Trustee Hernandez Orange.
so I have a couple questions, and I don't know if this could be answered. So I know we received an email stating that all 6 individuals weren't going to go. And just to correct, the reason why I stated Disney was because it was actually on the claim docket as Disney. It didn't say the rest. So, but with that, what is the actual amount for all of the individuals that are going? So from my recollection from the email, it's 3 individuals who are going. And what would be the amount in total for that, as well as not only, it's also including the flight and hotel, because right now we were just approving the conference. So we should have had that full amount. And then also, one of the questions that the trustees had asked was, where is the actual funding coming from? What fund it was actually coming from? And I'm not sure, I don't see the CFO. I don't know if the hotel and the flight could come from that same fund. I'm not sure how that works. So with that being said, I think those questions should have been answered. And if we're approving an amount, that amount should have been tied into this approval. So maybe you have it.
I think I can answer the question because I did ask that question with regards to where those funds were coming from, and I believe it's coming from a title grant.
All of it, for everything?
Usually it's marked as travel, so you have travel, then you have underneath, you have like travel meals, travel hotel, travel, so that would be all under the travel expenses, to my understanding.
Title what?
Title
Title II, professional development.
Yes.
Do you have the amounts?
I didn't ask that question. Do you have an amount, the total amount of the 3?
We had a total amount for the individuals going. However, because we did not send all the individuals, it was cut in half.
Okay.
Another question. I'm sorry.
But we didn't have the amount for the flights and the rooms, and I don't know what half is. I guess I didn't look at it directly when you sent the documentation. I don't even know if the amounts were on there. I just saw the classes. So if you have an amount to approve?
I don't have the exact amount. I think the total before was 7,000, so half of that would be about 3,500, approximately.
I'm sorry.
Is there any other questions or comments from the
Mr.
board?
President,
Trustee Smith?
Dr. Baker, could you repeat that amount, please?
I said, in the past, for all the individuals to go, it was approximately 7,000. With only 3 individuals going, it was cut in half, so that would be approximately $3,500.
Okay, Mr. President, so I'm asking Dr. Brago, so if the trip had been paid, if the trip has been paid for, how do we recoup that money for the 3 that did not go? Is it a credit? Are they gonna reimburse us for airfare, or are they gonna reimburse us for rooms? Because deposits have been made, plane tickets have been bought, and conferences fees have been paid. So how do we recoup that money?
I think some of the money we were able to recruit as far as credit, but we did lose a portion of the funds.
But had you done this prior to this, the situation wouldn't be an issue. That's why it's important to communicate.
Chairman, I have one more question to add. So I
Hernandez
guess
Orange.
this is my issue with the fact that we don't have an actual true amount. So if I said that I was sending 6, and let's say they went on their own, we approved a portion of it, now they want reimbursement, yet we don't have a money amount tied to this approval that we're trying to do tonight. I'd feel comfortable with knowing exactly how much it is in its entirety to pay for just the 3 that are going. Because now you could tie on any amount, and realistically speaking, because we as a board don't have an actual money amount tied to it.
I agree. However, I feel that this particular situation was an item that was brought to us early. Like you stated earlier, it was defined differently or titled differently. At this point, and I believe there was a member of the audience who did mention how it was going to get paid. So whether it's retroactively, I feel that if we approve this amount, or this particular item, we can have those items brought to us at our next session, retroactively. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to say that it's my
Trustee Gibson
understanding
King.
when all this took place, and when I was aware of the situation here, that it was stated on the docket Disney trip, I had already given my vote as to what I was going to do at that time. Because it's been an error, it's confusing. This is why we're having this discussion right now.
Madam Secretary, roll call.
Trustee Gomez?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
No.
Trustee Hernandez Orange?
No, but I do ask for you to come back and give us the correct amount for those 3 individuals that did go, so that we can know what we're actually approving.
Trustee Gibson King?
No.
Chairman Rodriguez?
Yes. Item 4.02, approval pre-K, Dr. Abrego.
Yes, currently we have the School City of Chicago receives approximately $3.8 million for title funds. These funds are for all our students. That's 3,200 students. The preschool program, we're going to make some modifications. Next year, the district will not receive funding for the preschool program, and thus the Title I funds will not be reimbursed. The program for next year, we want 175 students to attend. We're going to have a half-day program in the morning and one in the afternoon. And the cost of the program is going to be approximately $700,000, which is, I'd say about 20% of our Title I budget. And once again, this is the last year that we are going to receive funding or a grant to offset the cost of that program. So next year, we're going to have to pick it up ourselves through our title program. Again, we don't get reimbursed for the 4-year-olds. So we are going to move the program to the schools. We're going to scale down from 8 teachers to 4 teachers. And the goal is to revamp the program. The program is currently rated at a level 1. Where you're rated at a level 1, you don't qualify for the Build, Learns, Grow Stabilization Grant. But our hope is to bring it back to the schools, increase the grant so that we can get it to level 3 and 4. And once we get it to level 3 and 4, we can again submit for funds from the State Department, and that will help offset the cost of the grant. So right now, again, we're looking to move the program to the home schools.
Okay, is there any comments from the audience on the approval of pre-K? Hearing none, do I hear a motion from the board approving?
getting up.
I'm sorry.
Madeline Span, 4942 Euclid Avenue. I've been a strong supporter of the preschool program because I believe everything relies on us building a foundation. If you don't have a foundation between pre-K and third and fourth grade, you have nothing in junior high school and high school, and that's probably why we're at F. And so if we're going to spend all that money for preschool program, and you're level 1, what are we doing, babysitting? Or are we going to be teaching, did anyone check to see what the kindergarten curriculum is before you even start a preschool program? And in preschool, usually when you get to kindergarten, you should know your ABCs, your colors, your name. You should have a vocabulary of at least 40 words in your vocabulary, and a couple other things I can't think of offhand. Now, if our preschool is not going to do that, and we're only making salaries, you might as well not have it, unless you're just saying it's a straight-out babysitting class.
Any other comments from the audience? Hearing none, do I hear a motion from the board to accept item 4.02?
Mr. President, I move for approval of 4.02.
Motion made by trustee Gomez. Do I hear a second? I'll second that motion. Is there any discussions?
Yeah, Mr. President, I have some discussion.
Trustee Gibson King.
Yes, can you have, Mr. Umbrigo, can you have Mrs. Honest to come back and explain what the curriculum is? Because I know that on the flyer that you have, they were not any, there was, it didn't state if they were going to go to school from Monday through Friday, but I believe that's what they're going to be doing. The information is not, it's not even on the docket that we have. Monday through Friday, what the curriculum is. So can she, because there's some parents that want to know, to ask these questions, and if she can be here to answer some of those questions, can we have her here?
Oh, Ms. Gutierrez.
I can have her
Ms.
here,
Gutierrez.
not right now, but
Well,
I can
yeah.
have them answer those questions for our audience, the curriculum.
Yeah, that's what I would like to have happen.
Any other discussions?
Chairman, I have a
Trustee Hernandez Orange.
I have a question in regards to, first I want to say thank you, Dr. Abrego, for actually stating that you looked into having full-day preschool, that it was actually considered. I'm still not, I understand that because of the extensive wait list that we have for half-day, that's why we can't get the full day, but I know we do a lot of spending of, different items. I think spending should be focused on children and maybe you'd be able to afford to have more teachers for the pre-K. That's just my thought. I'm not telling you how to run the district. I'm just saying maybe you might, that's a thought. With that, my other concern is, the biggest concern, and you said about scaling down the day and the people in the buildings, but I feel like we're going to scale down a building also because of the fact that you have to have 65% occupancy in a school building. And if we move the Carrigash children to their prospective schools, that means that that building is not going to be 65% occupied. And I say this because I know the thought is to move the alternative program to the new Carrigash, but you stated on multiple occasions that we'll start off with about 20, maybe. But then again, for an alternative program, you have to identify children to even get them over there. You probably won't start them off there. So with that being said, we really don't know how many kids, so that means we're probably not going to occupy 65% of the building. The thought also is maybe move people from this administration building over to the Carrigash building, which means that this building is going to be not 65% occupied. Once again, there's no plan to the movement. I personally am not trying to give any building to anyone for $1. So I can't get there to understand why we move forward with this if we don't have a plan for the rest of the buildings.
Dr. Brigham?
We have looked into the plan. I think that was one of the key factors, that when we move the preschool, that we needed to have that building occupied. And I'm not saying it's a solution, but I think the recommendation was for the alternative program to be housed at Carrigash, along with, if this building were to be sold, that the administration center would also be housed at Carrigash.
Chairman?
Trustee Hernandez-Orange.
So, right, you let us know that, but this building is not sold. We don't have enough individuals for this alternative program that we are supposed to have. So that means that one of these buildings, either this building here or that building over there, at the start of the school year, will not be 65% occupied if we approve this. I just want to make sure we have an understanding of that.
Yeah, I do understand that. And I think one of the things also is that, right now, the item that's on the agenda is the approval of the pre-K.
To be moved.
If we decide to move other departments or other, that's forthcoming. In terms of this particular building, I think we've also opened up discussions as far as having this building sold. So we did talk about that as well. So right now, the first item that the item that's in question or for approval is the approval of pre-K. Now, I really don't have a problem talking about what we can do to the building, because I'm still going to be here, and I do want to talk about some of the opportunities that we can actually do to the building. But right now, the thing is, if we approve this, the question would be, and this is my question to Mr. Snow, if we approve this item and we move forward with the pre-K, how much time do we have in terms of moving departments to the Carrigash to solidify some of the storage that's there in terms of us using it as classrooms and things like that? Because it doesn't sound like we have to move alternatives first before we approve pre-K. I think pre-K is something that we want to do this year, and also during the course of that, we do want to at least start looking at other opportunities to put there. So my question to you is there a timeline for that, or a state law? I know there's a state law that was just passed, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen overnight. It's just something that we may have time to rectify as far as moving departments into that building. That's my question.
And I think my answer to that at this point would be it's a complicated question. And so I know that there's a few factors involved in that. A state law may be one of them. I think obviously you have to contend with the time that the school year would start, and you certainly want to have most of your logistics out of the way, I think, at least as a benchmark by the time that happens. Again, this would be something that, having kind of heard the discussion, I could report back to the board on, but I think I'd be remiss to try to answer it conclusively right now because I think there's multiple factors involved.
Chairman,
Trustee Hernandez Orange.
if I recall correctly, Attorney Harris at one point said it, and it's about a year.
That's right.
With that being said, we are putting, like Ms. Trustee Smith always says, the cart before the horse. So we're going to put the cart in motion, as in move Kerry Gosh, leave the building open, and now we're trying to backtrack and figure out if we could put people into those empty buildings. So I think what should have happened first is, let's make sure to put this out, like the Smith Association's company, what they told us how it should happen, sell this building first. The next part was move the kids from Kerry Gosh to the prospective schools. Then the third one was end up moving kids from Block to Central High School. So if they gave us the plan, and probably because all these factors were included with it, I'm not sure why we didn't understand the plan that was given to us. So those are your answers. I don't know if Dr. Reagan wants to answer mine.
Mr. President,
Trustee Gomez?
given the questions that the board still seems to have, I know you have 2, if not 3 meetings already on this very issue. I think that, some of the questions are legitimate, and I'm just going to move to table this to the next meeting.
There's a motion by trustee Gomez to table. Is there a second? Second made by trustee Smith. Madam Secretary, roll call for the,
We have discussion, because I have a question on that.
any discussions?
Yes, Chairman, my question is this going to continuously keep coming up until you guys get the 3 yeses? Dr. Abrego?
I don't think that's a comment that you should make in terms of any board members, because each board member is one vote. And
Well,
and they get to decide for themselves whether they want to approve or deny.
Right, but the reason why I said that is because you have to have a majority of the vote, that's 3.
Yeah, I know what you.
So that's why I'm asking, if, once you have the 3 votes, which is the majority, then are you going to stop putting this on the table?
Trustee Smith.
Mr. President,
That was for Dr. Abrego to answer.
I never got a chance to make my remarks, but I'm sorry. Dr. Brago, what if the improvement is not met? Since we're at a level 1, and in order for us to be reimbursed, we have to be a level 3. So what if the improvement is not met? Then what? Will the program continue? Who will pay? And we're depleting our federal title dollars, which we really cannot afford to deplete. And second of all, the approval of pre-K, I want our children to excel. Still no clarity to parents on this program is explained. I asked you last week, I personally talked to you and asked you to have Ms. Ondas to come and explain to these parents the process. As we always say, it's not the program, it's the process. And parents need to know if it's a half a day, do we prepare breakfast for AM students? Do we prepare lunch for PM students? Will the parents be responsible to be dropped off, to pick up? Transportation might be needed. Have you had conferences with the students and the parents and their responsibilities are? These are just the things that we need to know. And I just want, I'm sorry. The curriculum person, Ms. Ondas. Ms. Gutierrez, I'm sorry.
Gutierrez
So
is the
I'm just,
person.
we just need to know, where are we moving along with this? And I asked you last week, and this is what's frustrating all of us. I've asked you last week to have her present to explain this. And like we keep dragging it on, and school is about to start, and parents don't know which way to go. We keep tabling it, and as Trustee Hernandez says, we're just going to keep tabling it until you get your way, which is not going to happen. Not on my vote, until we get this straight. You're not going to just keep doing this. And that's the problem. We just keep tabling things that are very, very important that's pertaining to our children. And it's kind of getting on my nerves.
Madam Secretary, roll call for the second motion to table.
Trustee Gomez?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez Orange?
Yes.
Trustee Gibson King?
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez?
Yes. And Trustee Smith, I know you probably have the questions. If you can give those questions to Attorney Brago so he makes sure to get those questions answered for next session.
I did.
I'm
Mr.
sorry,
President, I did last week.
Dr. Brago, I'm sorry.
Chairman,
Dr. Brago.
Mr. President, I did, and I spoke with him twice. I spoke with him publicly, and then I called him Monday.
Chairman,
And he did promise me that somebody would be here last week, and it didn't happen, so I did, I'm not gonna keep asking the same question over and over again.
Duly noted.
But I just want you to know, I did ask him last week, and you all remember hearing me say, I asked for somebody to represent this particular issue.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Trustee Smith.
I've also, actually, all the questions that I asked here, I actually asked per email to all the board, including to Dr. Brago, so I'm not sure exactly how we need to communicate to get our questions answered. So I know you're asking for the questions, but yet I emailed them and they didn't answer.
Okay. Duly noted. Okay, number 5, new business. 5.01, approval of first reading, presiding officer, PO 163, Attorney Snow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just as a point of clarity, when we go to read these, I mean, some of them are lengthy. Do you want me to read the entire policy with amendments? Do you want to read just read the whole thing straight through? I'm not sure what we've done in the past, honestly.
Trustee Gomez, how do we do in the past?
I think just an overview of it's only first reading, so an overview would be, I think, adequate.
Okay. Policy 0163 is kind of an easier one. It's shorter. I can just read this. 0163 involves the presiding officer. The current language reads, "The president shall preside at all meetings of the board. In the absence or disability or disqualification of the president, the vice president shall act in his or her stead. If neither person is available, any member shall be designated by a plurality of those present to preside. The act of any person so designated shall be legal and binding." Language to be added consistently with the provisions of Board Policy PO 0161. President shall serve as the chair in all meetings of the board as that title is defined by Robert's Rules of Order. Pursuant to the rules of decorum set forth in that publication, all other members of the board shall refer to the president by title, shall not comment on motions or pending business unless recognized and granted the floor by the president. The president shall have the discretion not to recognize any board member who requests to speak but who does not address the president by title.
Is there any comments from the audience on the approval of first reading regarding the presiding officer, PO 163? Hearing none, do I hear? I'm sorry. Reverend Kelly.
I'm absolutely baffled. You got a room full of people in here. We got all these issues going in the city, in the school city, and we're actually taking the time out to approve calling the president the president?
Yes.
Enough said.
Any other comments from the audience? Hearing none, do I hear a motion from the board approving item 5.01?
Mr. President, move for approval of 5.01.
Motion made by trustee Gomez, is there a second? I'll second that motion. Any discussion?
Chairman Rodriguez.
Trustee Hernandez Orange.
So I'm assuming the reason for this policy is because some of the board members feel like the seat of the president obviously is above everyone because I make mention on several occasions. One, title is not important. We're all doing the same work. Our vote all counts as one. So to add all this language underneath in regards to you have to address as a person, as a title is, I've told you regardless, that's disgusting to me. Also, because of the issue that you have with the title, and I think you might want to add I'm not going to be here in 5 months, so you might want to add it for your benefit, to add that when you're addressing something in a text message, when you're addressing addressing the chair, because all the things that you guys all kind of attacked me for, or what you attacked me for, I need to address you in the email as a president, address in the text message as a president, when we're in executive session as a president. So all that you guys expect for the president role to consist of, I think that you probably want to put that on there, because I never want the next person to feel like I feel when, again, titles don't matter to me, they matter to others, so you might want to change all that information on there.
That's called Eagle Trip.
No.
Actually, this is a policy that has been in place. It's just being amended. And number two, as a board president conducting this board meeting, I'm considered the board chair. Each member of the board has one vote, just like me. I have just one vote. But as far as conducting the meeting, I think it's fair to address me as board chair. And that's all it is. It's nothing. There's no extravagant. There's nothing added to that title that gives me superpowers. Okay, so I'm just an individual, just like everyone else.
Chairman, I'm not done.
We're actually in board discussion right now, so.
Chairman, I have
Trustee Hernandez Orange.
so I know, again, you stated that, I don't know how it became to be that this is a very important policy. But I did send to the policy committee that we needed to do policy updates, and one of them being policy in regards to our teacher appreciation grants. That's probably something that should be on here. Also, how you remove students from a classroom should be on here. This is one that's very important because we're dealing with it even more often. 51101, and that's regarding homeless students, because we do have a lot of that after COVID. Also, I looked up a couple more in regards to that directly impact the child. Another one is where, for attendance, how we track the individuals. One, we made an executive session, multiple discussions about how we're trying to find children, but we don't know where they're at, so we can't count them. They're in our cohort, so we're not doing our due diligence in finding them. I think those are more important policies that need to be addressed rather than a title. Like you stated, in Robert Rules of Orders, yes, the person is a chairperson, but to have it actually addressed right now when there's so many other things that need to be addressed, that's more important. How about letting the Ms. Teshalat as a student government representative sit up here with us, like it says in our policy, that she's supposed to be able to sit along with 3 other student individuals. Maybe that should be addressed and actually followed, because we have a lot of policies that are not followed. So, you could put it on here, have it so we could follow it, but it doesn't mean it actually gets done, because that one's not being followed, and I've said that since I started being on the school board. So I just don't understand what actually is important to others.
Trustee Smith.
I have to agree with Trustee Orange, but I'm asking the policy committee to please explain this statement clearly, because what I'm reading is one thing, but what you're saying is something else. So if the president says no to a trustee cannot speak.
That's part of Robert Rules, yes.
So, Mr.
I've given,
Trustee Gomez, could you please explain that so we can have some clarity on that, please, dear?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Trustee Gomez.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, the policy was written to address and clarify for the board Robert's Rules of Order, and put it in our policy. We're not creating a rule, we're actually just incorporating that rule. Attorney Snow, maybe you could explain this a little bit further?
The general basis for this is that under the board current policies, Robert's Rules of Order govern a meeting. And Robert's Rules contain certain provisions for decorum, which go along with conducting a meeting in an orderly fashion. Referring to the chair as the chair or the president is traditionally a part of that concept of decorum. And the president of the board does, generally speaking, have the ability to control the meeting and limit discussion as he sees fit. And so I think in keeping with that and in keeping with the fact that the board has elected to govern itself using Robert's Rules, this is a point that I guess the previous policy didn't really address referring the president by title. And so this is language to add that.
Chairman,
Trustee Hernandez Orange.
when you guys, to the policy committee, when you guys looked at these policies, did you guys happen to research other school districts to see if they have a policy that addresses this?
Trustee Snow.
No,
I'm
no,
sorry, Attorney Snow, did you want to answer, or Trustee
No,
Gomez?
I asked the policy committee. Well,
Trustee Gomez chairs the policy committee, so Trustee Gomez, did you want to answer? This will be the last question we're going to go into.
Thank you. The policies are established by school districts across the country. Each school district determines their own policies. So some boards can choose to give a teacher appreciation grant. Other boards could choose not to. So there's no uniformity in this. The beauty, if you will, of policies is that each school district determines its own future, I guess, and its own rules through policy. And Attorney Snow, am I correct with that? Each school district determines its own policies?
Each school district does have the power to determine its board policies.
Okay,
That's
thank you,
correct.
Mr. President.
Madam Secretary, roll call for item 5.01, first reading.
Trustee Gomez?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
No.
Trustee Hernandez Orange?
no.
Trustee Gibson King?
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez?
Yes. Item 5.02, approval
Point of order,
first
Mr.
reading.
President. Can we just clarify for the record, that's on first reading?
Right.
So the board's policy states that the policy is not formally adopted until it's voted on at a meeting where it was present on the previous agenda.
Right.
So I just want to make it clear that the vote of the board today means it's moved on to second reading. It does not mean it's adopted as of today.
Thank you, Attorney Snow.
Thank you.
Item 5.02, approval first reading, public participation at board meetings, policies PO 0167.3. Attorney Snow.
Mr. President. I'm sorry. Mr. President, the policy regarding public comment is relatively lengthy. There is a synopsis that's given of it generally at most of the board meetings. I would submit for consideration today, the language that's being added to the policy states that any person who makes a request to speak and registers to do so in accordance with the policy will be presented with a copy of the policy and will be asked to sign an acknowledgement that they've received a copy of the policy and that they're responsible for knowledge and understanding of its comments. And then any person who speaks to the board pursuant to request to speak must identify himself or herself by name and address prior to proceeding with his or her comments. We can read the remaining policy, but it's unchanged. So I think primarily what this amendment is doing is formalizing the practice that I think we've had, at least at the last few meetings I've been at, where speakers identify themselves by name and address. And to note that we will have copies of this policy available so that the members in the audience are not just hearing my disclaimer, but they're actually able to review the entire policy and be familiar with its contents, and in conjunction with that, they'll be asked to sign an acknowledgement that says that they're aware of what the board's policies on public comment are.
Is there any comments from the audience in the approval of first reading for public participation at board meetings, policy PO 0167.3? Yes, ma'am.
Helen Steinbach, 5207 East 73rd Avenue in Maryville, Indiana. So is this policy not good enough just to have the attorney present and read the policy? Now you're going to have copies printed and make people that speak sign it. And that sounds like an extra cost that's not necessary, because I think we all understand what the policy is.
Reverend Wade.
My name is Reverend J.C. Wade, Jr. I pastored one church 45 years. I understand Robert's Rules of Order. That's number one. Number two, I understand how leaders digress and try to prolong stuff and deal with insignificant stuff to tire people out, to try to get them to start coming. But we're here.
State your name and address.
Yes, now? My name is Lourdes Hicks. I reside at 512 Grove Street. Instead of sitting here wasting almost an hour's time on these nonsense policies, can we focus more on important matters such as our students' grades, the state's grades, the students' mental health, if they need help financially to eat? We don't know what's going on with these kids. This whole almost hour is unnecessary.
My name is James Newsom. I live at 4223 Alcott Avenue. There is a thing called McKinley-Vento. It is Indiana's Homeless Child Act. In Central High School alone, there are more than 300 students in that. And while we're over here deciding all who's called Mr. President and everything else, there are kids on the street right now who haven't eaten, who don't know where they're gonna sleep at night, who are wearing shoes that talk when they walk.
Any other comments? Hearing none, do I hear a motion from the board?
Mr. President, I move for approval of 5.02.
Motion made by trustee Gomez for item 5.02. Is there a second?
Go ahead and second.
I'll second it, Mr. President.
Second made by trustee Gibson King. Is there any discussions?
Chairman.
Trustee Hernandez,
Go ahead, Mr. Trustee Smith.
trustee Smith.
President, Vanessa, you always beat me, but anyway, Mr. President, I'm not going to go into a lengthy discussion about this policy, but right here, it does say, this part bothered me. Persons who have residency within the boundaries of the school corporation and/or who have children enrolled in the school corporation will be given first priority to address the school board. What about if you just own property here and you're paying taxes? So that's just not right. I mean, I might not have any children in the school, but I might not have a grandchild in the school or whatever, but I have 4 or 5 businesses and I'm paying your salary. So I can't speak. That's what this right here is saying. So what about the taxpayers,
Mr. President,
like the businesses?
Trustee Gomez?
I'd just like to note that that is the current policy. That policy was passed July 5th, 2022. And I was not on the policy committee. So I would just say that if it was wrong then, or it's wrong now, it was wrong then. This, again, is only first reading, so if there's an issue with the previously passed policy, there's opportunity now to give feedback to the policy committee so we can amend this. This is not written in stone. This is a policy that's only under consideration, first reading, and as Attorney Snow mentioned, it goes through a second reading. In between the first and second reading, the policy committee, which I chair, I would appreciate any feedback such as the one you just mentioned.
Thank you.
Trustee Hernandez Orange.
So, yes, Diane, myself, and you were actually, because, he's throwing the blame, people like to throw the blame. So you and I were actually, this policy was done with us, so we made a mistake. We missed the owner, the key stakeholders, so I hope they address that. Thanks for catching that. With that being said, I think, and Attorney Snow, correct me if I'm wrong, so I was brought up that if I sign a document, it's legally binding. So now I'm going to read something that says, okay, I understand that the board president has the power to interrupt, warn, terminate. He also has the power to request an individual to leave. He also has the power to tell the police to have them leave and to call for a recess. So now this legally binding document is going to be given to the public so they are not able to speak. I'm not okay with that. I understand we have the policy, but in reality, it's just there to have. I know for a fact I never pursued any of this, but sometimes people put policies in place with signatures or have a document in place with a signature so that they can make sure it's legally binding. Attorney Snow, I don't know if this would be if they do that, but I'm not going to take away the power for the people to speak with a document. And like Helen, Ms. Steinbeck said, I'm also not going to waste the money. So I'm a definite no, but I'm glad that you guys are addressing the policy to add that one extra part about the people who are business owners. So great catch on that.
Any other questions or discussion? Madam Secretary, roll call.
Trustee Gomez?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
No.
Trustee Hernandez Orange?
No.
Trustee Gibson King?
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez?
Yes. Item 5.03, approval of first reading, job description policy 1400. Attorney Snow.
I apologize, my board docs went down. Hang on just a second. 1400. Board Policy 1400 addresses provisions that are to be included in job descriptions, which are required to be maintained by the superintendent. The amendment is to add a set of minimum items, minimum required items that need to be included in every job description for every position of employment within the corporation. Those items are, number one, a list of the essential duties and responsibilities associated with the position. Number two, a listing of all required qualifications and certifications which are prerequisite to employment in the position. Number three, physical requirements associated with the position, along with a description of physical activities which are considered to be essential job functions. Four, a reference to the appropriate salary schedule classification for the position. Five, general required work schedules, locations, and number of hours worked per week. Six, a brief description of benefits eligibility, whether or not the position entitles the position holder to benefits. Number seven, the job title of the person to whom the position reports. 8, a reference to the appropriate organizational chart which contains or refers to the position along with a copy of that chart. Number 9, a statement as to whether or not the position is traditionally a, quote, union position covered by any collective bargaining agreement, and if so, a designation with regard to the appropriate collective bargaining agreement that, or unit that represents that position. And 10, a statement as to whether the nature of the position would require that the employee be eligible for bonding.
Okay, is there any question, is there any comments from the audience on the approval of first reading job description policy 1400? Hearing none, do I hear a motion from the board to approve first reading item 5.03?
Mr. President, I move for approval of 5.03.
Motion made by trustee Gomez, is there a second? I'll second that motion. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Mr. President, I'm not going to spend all night tonight with all of these policies. I'm going to submit my suggestions to the policy committee. I just spoke with him and gave him my opinions, and I'm not going to sit here all night to 9 o'clock discussing this. And I'm not being rude or anything, but like we said, we have other things to discuss. I'm going to give him my corrections. He and I discussed that we will communicate, and he will, for the second reading, bring up the suggestions that I have. He and his policy committee will do this. I'm not going to do this all night. I'm just not going to do this.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President,
Trustee Gomez?
this policy was last updated July 13th, 2009. So it's been quite a few years, and it's sorely needed so that we can upgrade for the HR department, we can upgrade the understanding of not only the applicant, but for the HR department to then determine which applicant fits that role best. So that was the purpose in adding this policy, those 10 points, to this policy that's over 14 years old now. So again, we're just trying to update policies. That's what the policy committee does. And I appreciate if somebody would, or my colleagues would support this.
Chairman,
Trustee Hernandez-Orange?
when you had the discussion in regards to this policy, was the HR director involved in the communication?
The HR director was not present. The policy is only for first reading. We wanted to put something on paper. Now that Dr. Mitchell has this in front of his eyes, he can provide feedback as anyone from the board can provide feedback. And then we will amend it accordingly and hopefully pass it for second reading. So as with all policies, they go through two readings. The first reading is generally to put it on the floor. The second reading is to refine it.
Just Trustee Gomez, so you and I sat on the policy committee previously, and how we always worked the policy committee was if it affected somebody or a position, so when we had HR's questions, HR was set in. If there was a CFO question, CFO set in. And in reality, when we did the first meeting, none of the actual changes were added to the agenda. We just let the board know that we were actually going to review it, and then we did the changes. So the second board meeting you would ask for all. So I mean, if it changed from what it was, just if you could let us know. I do have a couple things to add to here, but I would love to hear what the people who actually have degrees and actually work in HR might want to, add to this, just because they see stuff that they probably need to have added on because of previous experience. So that's just my thought on that. But I'll send you my questions for this. But I think this is something that definitely needs to be updated, 2009, for sure.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Trustee Gomez?
Yes, just in response to that. What we failed to do last time was we just put the old policy on the floor without any changes, without any thought. And then all of a sudden, we're trying to get input from everyone. The policy committee met with Attorney Snow and Attorney Harris. We went through the changes that we've offered here. And again, it's open for discussion from or input, from my colleagues and from the HR director as well as the superintendent. So we thought we'd approach policies this year with just getting some changes on the floor for the first reading and then refining them for the second reading.
Madam Secretary, roll call?
Trustee Gomez?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
No.
Trustee Hernandez Orange?
Yes.
Trustee Gibson King?
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez?
Yes. Item 5.05, approval of first reading, weapons, PO 3217.
Mr. President, this is kind of a lengthy policy with a lengthy amendment. And I believe that it's a matter that is of some importance, so I'm going to read it. Policy number 3217, addressing weapons. This policy is applicable, this is new language added, this policy is applicable to all employees of the corporation. We return to language that's existing. The school board prohibits staff members from possessing, storing, making, or using a weapon in any setting that's under the control and supervision of the corporation for the purpose of the school activities approved and authorized by the corporation, including but not limited to property leased, owned, or contracted for by the corporation, a school-sponsored event, or in a corporation vehicle. The next paragraph
Attorney
speaks...
Snow, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we skipped one.
I believe we did.
I'm sorry?
He's actually on 5.04.
Oh, my fault. Okay,
I apologize.
my fault.
Thanks,
Okay.
Trustee Hernandez Orange, for catching.
We will return to that in a minute then. Policy 3120
All right.
is, addresses employment of professional staff. This is a policy, if I can summarize, that deals with terms and conditions of how the board selects and employs its professional staff, which are the superintendent, the principals, the assistant principals, vice principals, classroom teachers, and special education employees to the extent that they aren't contracted, the speech and hearing personnel, psychologists, and social workers. Essentially, the effect of this amendment is that the superintendent shall prepare administrative guidelines for the recruitment of selection of all professional staff. That part has always been there. The new language is that these guidelines shall be subject to review and approval by the board, in addition to and in conjunction with any guidelines prepared by the superintendent for approval by the board. All available positions for employment with the corporation shall be posted in accordance with the following requirements. 1, all postings at a minimum shall be available internally on bulletin boards and within the superintendent's office and human resources department, and shall be made available externally on the corporation's website. So all postings will be made internally in the building and also on the website. 2, all postings for available positions shall contain, at a minimum, a job description which complies with Board Policy PO 1400, the one we just talked about, and a reference to the appropriate salary range for the position in conjunction with the corporation's salary schedule. Number 3, all postings shall remain open for a minimum of 14 days prior to the selection of a candidate for approval by the board. That's the extent of the language that was added. The remaining part of the policy has been there.
Is there any comments from the audience on the approval of first reading, employment of professional staff policy 3120? Hearing none, do I hear a motion from the board to accept policy for first reading, item 5.04?
Mr. President, I move for approval of 5.04.
Motion made by Trustee Gomez. Is there a second? I'll second the motion. Any discussions?
Chairman?
Trustee Hernandez Orange.
I know this is something that we need to have updated, and I know our HR director sat right there and stated that not only is it supposed to be but being highly effective on the interview process, but also a good fit. So I would love to see that in this employment. But I think what really is my concern is the title is employment of professional staff. We don't use that wording anymore. So that's what needs to be changed to begin with. So if you look in your policies, there's one that states professional staff, and the other one, I forgot what it states, but it shows the difference between the two type of people that we hire in our school district. I think that definitely needs to be addressed looked at immediately before you looked at these policies, or when you looked at these policies.
Any other discussions?
Mr. President.
Trustee Gomez?
One of the reasons for amending this was to provide more transparency in the process of hiring. So I know what Attorney Snow read was somewhat lengthy, but the bottom line is that it helps bring more transparency to this entire process.
Any other discussions? Madam Secretary, roll call.
Trustee Gomez?
Yes.
Trustee Smith? No. Trustee Hernandez Orange?
Yes.
Trustee Gibson King?
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez?
Yes. 5.05, approval first reading, weapons, PO 3217. Attorney Snow.
I apologize, I have too many windows open here. Okay. Yes, I do, thank you. Okay, so I will try to summarize this a little bit, but the changes are fairly substantial, and again, I think this is a significant policy, so we will take our time with it a little bit. School board, first of all, we had just read prohibits staff members from possessing, storing, or making or using a weapon in any setting under the control of the school corporation. That includes on school property, in school buildings, in school vehicles, at school sponsored events. Possession of a firearm on school property does include storing a firearm in a personal vehicle. It also, it can apply in a lot of different situations on school property other than where it would, for the normal person that has a permit to carry. The term weapon is defined pretty broadly in this policy to include firearms, tasers, handguns, stun guns, knives, razors, clubs, anything, an electric weapon, chemical weapons, martial arts weapons. There's a pretty expansive definition of what a weapon means. And kind of moving on to the policy that is at issue here, it has to do with reporting knowledge of threats or reporting knowledge of a person with a weapon on school property. So the amended section reads as follows. Staff members must report knowledge and/or information regarding possession of dangerous weapons and/or communication of threats of violence by students, staff members, or visitors as immediately as reasonably possible after the staff member acquires such knowledge and/or information. For purposes of this policy, knowledge and/or information is understood to include any information, including tips from students or staff members, audible conversations overheard by staff members, social media postings, or any other source of information which the staff member deems credible and reliable and which indicates that either A, a student, staff member, or visitor has possessed or is in possession of a dangerous weapon on corporation property at a corporation-sponsored event or in a corporation-owned vehicle, or B, a student, staff member, or visitor has made a threat of violence which, if carried out, would endanger the safety or well-being of a corporation student or staff member. All reports made pursuant to this policy must be made in accordance with the following protocol. A, in the event that an immediate threat to the safety or well-being of any student, staff member, visitor, or other person within a corporation, facility, or vehicle is readily apparent, without further need for investigation, staff members shall immediately contact emergency services and report the matter to the East Chicago Police Department or other responding agency. B, in any situation in which an immediate threat to the safety or well-being of any student, staff member, visitor, or other person within a corporation, facility, or vehicle is not readily apparent and/or any situation which requires further investigation, staff members should report their knowledge and/or information to the building principal, utilizing the most expedient method possible with follow-up confirmation via email or written internal memorandum. C, the building principal shall initially review the report of the staff member and shall contact the East Chicago Police Department in the event that he or she perceives an immediate threat to the safety or well-being of any student, staff member, visitor, or other person within a corporation, facility, or vehicle. D, in any situation described above in subsections A, B, or C of this paragraph, the building principal shall, after making the necessary contacts with emergency services and/or the East Chicago Police Department, report the situation to the superintendent, utilizing the most expedient method possible with follow-up confirmation via email or written internal memorandum. E, following the initial review of the staff member's report and any necessary calls to emergency services or the East Chicago Police Department, the building principal shall perform an investigation and provide a full written report concerning the matter to the superintendent for disposition. F, the superintendent shall include all reports made pursuant to this policy in his or her biweekly reporting to the board, so that the board may remain informed as to matters concerning the safety and well-being of the corporation's faculty and staff. Failure to report knowledge and/or information as defined in this policy in accordance with the protocol set forth in this policy may subject the staff member who acquires but does not report the knowledge or information to disciplinary action up to and including termination.
Is there any comments from the audience on the approval of first reading for weapons PO 3217? Hearing none, do I hear a motion from the board approving item 5.05?
Mr. President, I move for
President, I
approval
make a motion.
5.05.
Motion made by trustee Gomez, seconded,
I'll second it.
seconded by trustee Gibson King. Is there any discussion?
Chairman?
I'm sorry, was there an opportunity for comment? I didn't hear it. Okay, just making sure. Thank you.
Trustee Hernandez Orange?
So, question first off, do we have this policy that has language for students bringing in any weapons? You guys know? I don't know offhand. I'm sure we could look it up. I just don't know offhand.
I'm sorry, say that again?
If there's any policy regarding students bringing in weapons. I mean, I could look it up, but I thought you guys might have done that.
There is a student weapon policy. Off the top of my head, I don't remember if it's
On the
in a
handbook?
board policy or if it's in a student
handbook?
handbook, but yes.
So we might want to look at that for a policy or include language in here. That's number one. Number two is, this is a policy done where we don't know who's in the school building. It's written by people who don't know who's in the school building. So I say this because you could have a high school game and a principal is not at the high school game, but yet the athletic director is the person in charge who has probably a SRO, because we have SROs now in the building. That's a police officer. So actually, they should be the ones implementing this, I guess, what it says, investigation. So I think we need to know what's actually happening in the school building so that we could see who the correct person is that needs to be doing all this. While I understand that the reporting person would probably be the principal, but it's all these other people that are in charge the day of something like this happens, the security, an SRO, the athletic director, or even just another individual who's supervising that day. So I think we need to tweak the language to kind of add that in here, because it's not solely on the principal, because they might not be there that day. It might be on other individuals. So I think we should really look into that. Day-to-day operations, how does it work if something comes to be? And then the last thing is, we added a section F that the superintendent shall include all reports made pursuant to the policy in his or her biweekly report. So if we're going to put that a biweekly report needs to be done in policy, that he has to report if there was a violation, then we have to put a policy in that states the superintendent shall include or shall give the board reports biweekly, because right now it's just a suggestion that was given by the board president. So if it's not actually in writing, he doesn't have to do it. So in reality, us as the board will never have to know. So you probably want to put a policy in place to make F actually happen.
Trustee Hernandez Orange, also policy PO 3217 was adopted back on July 13, 2009. So this is the,
F was not.
F was not, no. Any other discussions?
Mr. President?
Trustee Gomez?
Yeah, I know that there was some discussion to trustee Hernandez Orange comment. There was some discussion that we had at at one of our policy meetings, and between Attorney Snow and Attorney Harris, that very issue may have fallen off the table here, so we'll look at doing that. But I believe we talked about that, a reporting structure in the event the principal is not present. So, thank you.
Any other discussions? Madam Secretary, roll call?
Trustee Gomez?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez Orange?
This is for just first reading, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Trustee Gibson King?
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez?
Yes. 5.06, approval of first reading, employment of support staff policy 4120. Attorney Snow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, trustee. This is a policy that mirrors one that we reviewed a little bit earlier. The board's policies actually classify employees of the corporation into what it calls professional staff and support staff. So individuals in these categories, including, again, to the extent that we don't conflict with a CBA, clerical, transportation, maintenance and custodial, paraprofessionals, nurses, IT, coordinators, security, office and community aides, and parent liaisons. And essentially, this amendment is just stating that, again, if there's to be a posting for employment in any of those categories, number one, all the postings need to be made available both internally and externally here in the building and on the website. Number two, all of those postings need to contain the job description that we discussed earlier in policy number 1400 and a reference to the appropriate salary range. And number three, all postings must remain open for a minimum of 14 days prior to selection of a candidate for approval.
Is there any comments from the audience on approving first reading, employment of support staff policy 4120? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve item 5.06?
Mr. President, I move for approval of 5.06.
Motion made by trustee Gomez. Is there a second? I'll second that motion. Is there any discussions?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Mr. President, it says here, the listing of the individuals, and it says coordinators. Does that include the curriculum coordinators?
Trustee Snow, did you want to answer that question, or trustee Gomez?
That's an HR question?
I mean, from my perspective, the focus of the amendments wasn't on the list, so it's something that I could look back and try to figure out the history on, but I'm not sure historically how that word's been interpreted.
Thank
Mr.
you.
President,
Trustee Gomez?
this is more for support staff as opposed to professional staff.
Certified,
So,
Sorry.
non-certified?
Yeah.
Mr. President, they need to change that then,
Okay.
just from the word coordinators, because that was kind of deceiving.
Okay. And can we please keep it down? I mean, I can hear everything that's going on back here in this section here. Please, just keep it down just a little bit. Is there any other discussions? Madam Secretary, roll call.
Trustee Gomez?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez Orange?
Yes.
Trustee Gibson King?
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez?
Yes. Item 5.07, approval of first reading, purchasing policy 6320. Attorney Snow.
Mr. President, the amendments that are made to the purchasing policy, largely the purchasing policy is going to remain unchanged in terms of the thresholds that, dollar thresholds that require public notice or solicitation of quotes, those kinds of things. There's two provisions that are being added to this. Number one is a provision that states that all contracts for service, including those services traditionally considered to be, quote, professional services, which are exempt from certain procurement requirements, shall be procured via a request for proposals which complies with the appropriate state and/or federal statutes and regulations. The other amendment states that the school's purchasing agent, which is a person who's designated to do procurement activities under state statute, the purchasing agent is authorized to make emergency purchases without prior approval of those goods and services that are needed to keep the schools in operation. Whenever possible, however, the board shall have the opportunity to meet and confer during a special meeting in order to determine whether the circumstances constitute an emergency to the extent that deviation from the normal and routine practices set forth in this policy will be permitted.
Is there any questions or is there any comments from the audience on the approval of first reading purchasing policy 6320? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to accept item 5.07, first reading?
Mr. President, move for approval of 5.07.
Motion made by trustee Gomez. Is there a second? I'll second that motion. Any discussions?
Chairman.
Trustee Hernandez Orange?
So when we're saying professional services, we're saying like a psychologist who we had in a professional contract, we want to have procurement for them? Is that what this is saying? Anyone? I mean, yeah.
Attorney Snow?
Can you, I think I heard what the question, but I want to make sure I heard you.
So when it comes to professional services, is that like
Yes.
something like a psychologist that we have to hire on for a professional service?
So professional services, I mean, I can answer that question a couple of ways. I think, number one, I believe that for the majority of school psychologists and social workers and that kind of thing, historically, those are contracts that I've reviewed that come up in front of the board for approval. I don't know necessarily whether quotes are solicited for those or not.
No.
I think in general, the concept of a professional service, it's kind of a loose definition. I think it's something that you're never probably going to find an exhaustive list. But I think that the critical factor in determining what constitutes a professional service is the level of trust and confidence that's required, and also the level of kind of advanced skill or advanced degrees or certifications that are needed to carry it out. So typically, you think about financial advisors or accountants or attorneys, engineers, architects, those kinds of things, because there's a lot of certifications that are required and because there's a lot of trust and confidence in the partnership that's required in order for it to function correctly. And so typically agencies are given some leeway when they procure those things to kind of get around the normal purchasing requirements of, you know, just solicit quotes and automatically go with the last bidder. It allows you to factor other things into that discussion. Whether that would extend to psychologists and social workers and that kind of thing, I think you could make the argument that it does. I think that, you know, again, those are professional services and they do require a certain level of trust and confidence. I think it's a little different than directly advising the corporation with regard to, you know, finances and public dollars. With a psychologist or a social worker, you're dealing more in terms of confidentiality and trust in their relationship between them and a student or a client. So it changes the dynamic a little bit, but I think it's definitely a point that could be discussed.
So and with that, I think that we need to better define what professional services are, because, and I say this, you know, I don't want it to be that we're putting an extra like barrier for our director of special education to seek professional services for our special education students. And I feel like this is now doing that. So until this is and I know this is the first reading, but if this is not properly defined, I do not agree with this by any means. Also, the fact that you're saying, so any single item group identical, costing less than 25,000. So, you're talking about groups that make more than $25,000. So that's why it just doesn't, I guess, make sense to me as to what we're actually looking for. So maybe if I better understood what you're trying to stop, then maybe I could understand why we're going with this policy. The second thing I have is your amendment for whenever possible, however, the board shall have opportunity to meet and confer with in a special meeting. So we're saying that now the board is going to be able to meet with every professional service contractor that comes in. So if I don't like a certain psychologist, or if I don't like a financial whatever, now we get to call all of them in? Is that what that's saying?
I can respond to that.
Attorney Snow.
So the policy, yeah, that's the Second Amendment that you just talked about is related to emergency purchases, so it's separate from the professional service. The line before that amendment says that the purchasing agent is authorized to make emergency purchases without prior approval of goods and services needed to keep the schools in operation. So this is essentially saying that right now the purchasing agent has discretion to kind of in an emergency situation say that we have certain things that we need in order to keep the schools in operation, and then purchase them directly without board approval or without going through the procurement guidelines and kind of deal with it later after the fact. This amendment is basically adding language that says, in that situation, the board should be aware of that, and if it's possible for the board to meet and decide so that you don't have a purchasing agent from the school making a unilateral decision about what constitutes an emergency and what doesn't. If the board wants the ability to weigh in on the expenditure of those funds, it can have that opportunity.
So then, let's say COVID happened again and we need to get, I don't know, masks, right? And we're going to have to meet with the person who says it's an emergency in order for them to actually go out and buy it?
It says that you would have the opportunity to meet and confer. It does not say that you have to. And the only reason that the special meeting is mentioned is because the majority of the board can't meet on a topic like that without having it be a public meeting.
No, I agree. I mean, I understand. I don't understand why we have to insert ourselves. Sometimes we say, don't be involved in day-to-day operations, and other days we are. That's all.
Any other discussions?
Attorney Snow. I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Trustee Gomez?
Yes, Attorney Snow, this portion, I believe, either you or Attorney Harris inserted regarding the special meeting, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I have, I guess I would just say also, Mr. President, that, again, we're trying to be a little more transparent in what we do here, and it is not meant for the special ed people. And again, if the language needs to be clarified, we can certainly do that before it appears for second reading.
Okay. Madam Secretary, roll call.
Trustee Gomez?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez Orange?
No.
Trustee Gibson King?
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez?
Yes. 5.08, approval of first reading for procedures of challenges of library material policy. Attorney Snow.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is actually a new policy that is being drafted in anticipation of a statute that was recently passed. It will take effect in January of '24. This is recommended by I believe by the Indiana School Board Association in terms of the form, and it is a new policy, so it doesn't have a number yet, and I'm going to read it in its entirety, but it's short. The policy is entitled Procedures for Challenges of Library Materials. This Nope, this isn't what I was looking for.
What they gave me,
Right, and this is what's in the,
that's what they gave me.
this is what's in the agenda. I'm going to make a suggestion that we table discussion on this one, trustee, because we had been discussing a form, and what's in the board docs right now is actually the recommendation from ISBA to us. So it's not the actual form of the policy. I can't read it, and therefore I would suggest that we just move it on to a different meeting at this point.
Mr. President, I move to table this item.
Trustee Goldman make a motion to table. Is there a second? I'll second the motion. Any discussion? Madam Secretary, roll call.
Trustee Gomez?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez Orange?
Yes.
Trustee Gibson King?
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez?
Yes. Item 6, superintendent remarks. Dr. Abrego.
I'm sorry.
I would like to inform the governing board and the community that Attorney Lucas Barnes has concluded the CFO investigation. Attorney Lucas Barnes concluded no wrongdoing on the part of the CFO, and therefore the CFO returned to work last week. Also, this is the last week of summer school, and our third grade students will be given an opportunity to retake the IREAD test. So we want to wish them luck on that exam. And also, the last week of summer school, we have our seniors who are earning credits during summer school to meet all the requirements for the high school diploma. We want to thank all the students for attending summer school and wish them luck on their state assessments.
Trustee remarks. Trustee Smith.
Yes, I'm sorry, President Rodriguez. I had something I wanted to add to the new business. Can I still add it? May I still add it?
As far as, our-
Technically, you can. We've done it
yeah,
before.
I mean, we have open
As long as you have a
business. but
second.
Yes.
It has to be a form of a motion, but go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend and terminate the superintendent's contract.
Second.
Motion.
So there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussions?
Actually,
Point
has
of
to be
order, Mr.
comment.
President, I'm sorry. Just a point of order on this,
Attorney
because
Snow?
we kind of got down the road with it a little bit. So I just want to make sure we understand that the vote at this point and the discussion is on whether to allow the item to be considered by the board. If there's actually going to be a motion to terminate the contract, it'll have to be a separate contract. So I just want the board to be aware that we're going to have to consider it both ways in order for it to be effectively completed.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, roll call.
Wait, so
But
is
they
it
can comment on this motion. So the motion right now is, do we amend the agenda to include this item on the agenda and consider it?
and this is amended so the audience can speak on this agenda item, correct? Am I saying that? I'm correct, Nick.
Since,
I believe that the board would have to make it an agenda item before you could have comment on an agenda item.
correct.
Attorney Snow, so if she makes the recommendation to add this, and I second the motion, now it's an agenda item. So, and then now we can
Hasn't been
have
approved
comment.
as an agenda item yet. She's making a motion to add it to the agenda.
I did ask for a motion to add to the agenda.
Correct.
You all went so fast before I could even go through the new,
Madam Secretary, roll call.
to amend.
Roll call.
This would be a vote to permit the amendment to the agenda to create an agenda item to discuss this matter.
Trustee Gomez?
No.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez Orange?
Yes.
Trustee Gibson King?
No.
Chairman Rodriguez?
No. Next is trustee remarks. Trustee Smith.
I'm going to say, well, Mr. President, I have no confidence I'm still going to say that I have no confidence in the direction of which the superintendent is leading our district. And I'm going to keep saying this until everybody understands and recognizes and realize, as opposed to us moving forward, we're moving backwards. Thank you.
Trustee Gibson King?
Yes, I want to make a comment to say that about the, we're going to have the Mrs. Christine to come in to expound on the pre-K program for the children, and also a letter that was written from the community that needs to be addressed. Mr. Ambrego from HRV, I believe Reverend Sloss wrote their letter, so we're looking for some written response or some feedback on that. That's all, thank you.
Trustee Hernandez Orange?
Yes, I have just a couple items to say. First and foremost, I apologize for making this meeting extra long. I don't vote on stuff that I don't know what it is. And the fact that the continuous comment is to hold people accountable, stuff like that, then I just don't understand why there are majority votes to items that have that don't have the adequate information on the back end. I think that's, not smart on us as being the board. I also want to address that, yes, we're talking about policy. With that being said, the student government president has reached out to us and has asked to sit in her rightful position per the policy. So I do hope that, Chairman, you actually adequately take the time out to review the policy, reach out to this young lady to make sure that she sits here with us. Again, you're not a voting member, but your opinion is obviously very important. And the fact that we have more students in the audience and they're continuously coming, they're trying to show you that, hey, we're here, we want to be heard too. So let's make sure we give them the olive branch to come and sit here. Also, today is June 26th. And I saw 7-on-7s for the football teams already started. I have seen volleyball conditioning happening. I have seen basketball teams also participating, asking to volunteer for stuff, and we still don't address that matter. And we're addressing matters that have to deal with titles. That is extremely disappointing to me. And it hurts me that, again, this meeting shows we're not putting our students first. On April 14th, we had a posting from you, Board Chair, in regards to a matter in regards to wipes that supposedly were, people were, I guess, calling you, letting you know that they were stolen or given improperly, so forth and so on. And you ended up putting on your Facebook page that you were going to make sure that this was properly addressed and that we were going to investigate. At that next board meeting, you had a bunch of individuals come up here and allow them to accuse our CFO as well as the park director, saying that she stole wipes and this was not done properly, blah, 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 blah. And at no point, as of yet, have you quickly responded and put something on your Facebook page. At no point, and maybe you're going to do it next, where you're going to address and apologize to the CFO and to the park director. But the same energy that you gave to the accusing, investigation, all that, should have been the same energy put in the apology to those individuals, because that's what you said you were going to do when we all conferred in the meeting back there. So we have to treat everyone equally, and that's something that we unfortunately keep going by the wayside here now, and I'm sad to see that. So that's all for me.
Trustee Gomez?
Thank you, Mr. President. I know that these are a number of policies that some may feel that are not necessary, but the board operates by policy and the district operates by policy. So I want to thank Trustee Gibson King for her input on this during our policy committee meetings, along with Attorney Snow and Attorney Harris for their legal advice too. I think this is moving us in the right direction. In addition, the Indiana School Board Association, we're certainly not done with policies because the Indiana School Board Association put out policies that we are required to implement. One of them you heard this evening, and that was the challenges to library media and other supplemental materials. There's one on student discipline rules for 2023. There is another one for summer 2023, for expanded criminal history checks for applicants, expanded criminal history checks for employees. So this policy committee is working to update not only these old policies from 2009, but we're trying to bring them up to 2023 standards. There's another one here for teacher appreciation grant. These have been forwarded over to the superintendent for his review, and he actually sat in with us at our last board meeting, our last policy committee meeting. So, I just want to, again, give thanks to Trustee Gibson King, Attorney Snow, and Attorney Harris for their input on the policies that we are updating and the ones that are new on the horizon that are coming from us from the Indiana School Board Association. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you. All right, so I want to talk about a few things. First of all, when we talk about items that have been misused, items that really we don't have any control over until we find out after the fact. Those are the type of situations that, to us, or at least to me, that is why I asked for, I told Attorney Brago, and with regards to, and I'm sorry not to say your name, I'm sorry, Superintendent Abrego. And this is in regards to the Lysol wipes. I do want to thank our one of our administrators for coming back. I'll do that. However, in this type of situation, when we talk about ethical behavior, all the board members that are here today did not know anything about any Lysol wipes being given out. And we're not just talking about one or two. We're talking about over 40, 50 Lysol wipes. These are items that don't, to me, I'm not going to apologize to that, because once I found out that this was happening is when I brought it up to our superintendent, who then conducted an investigation. Now, if the trustee would like to have apology, I think you need to, first of all, understand where you're coming from in terms of how did you get it? And it's not just the wipes, but in an open recorded session, you mentioned an administrator. However, that administrator did testify, and that's the reason why I would want to thank the administrator for actually, giving her comments in terms of her testimony in regards to the Lysol wipes. But the trustee that pointed the finger on a recorded session did not have the means to even testify to explain the reason why she stated what she stated. So no, I'm not going to apologize to this trustee, but I will say this. I want to thank the administrator for being what she is in terms of explaining her situation. But that's as far as I'm going to go. It may not be criminal through the investigation, but it's unethical to me. With regards to one of the other items I'd like to bring up is recently I had a discussion with one of Dr. Bach and our superintendent regarding the next steps for our strategic plan. Now, in November, we talked about our goals, visions. All board members have came together to address the district goals. And our next step now is to bring Dr. Bach in to have committee members, community leaders, to create this committee so that we can actually move forward on creating this strategic plan. So I'm hopeful that everyone can participate when that time comes. And I'm looking on, hopefully open up those for next steps with the superintendent. Finally, I'd like to apologize to one of my trustees for any wrongdoing that I may have said to her. Obviously, it was in a heat of a moment, but I believe that every attorney, every trustee has the opportunity to address their comments during the time that those comments are addressed when I call their name. But so I do want to apologize to her if there's any. Who is her? She went to the bathroom, y'all. So that's where I want to go with that, and so I do want to apologize to her with regards to that. That concludes my comments. And I'd like to start by stating that next date and time for our take it back, our public forum. Attorney Snow, you want to go recite the terms of our public forum?
Yes, the public forum is your opportunity to comment with regard to the business of the board. Public comments need to be prefaced with your name and address. They will be limited to 3 minutes in length. There will be one opportunity to speak per person who is registered. And the comments are not intended to address any member of the board individually or by name. They are to be addressed to the whole board. Should refrain from personal attacks. We should refrain from things that would be considered unprofessional or unproductive in this environment. And I'm trying to think if I covered all of them now. I'm trying to do off the top of my head. The board president does have the discretion, obviously, to be able to declare pursuant to policy if he believes things that get out of hand.
Trustee Gomez?
Thank you. The first speaker, and I'll give notice of 1 minute left to each of the speakers. The first one is Melvin Mobley.
My name is Melvin Mobley, 3625 Pulaski. I just want to say a couple of things in these 3 minutes. First, I had a concerned parent come to me a couple of days ago in regards to the summer school program, and they basically wanted to know why wasn't there any nurses this year during the summer school on board. There were no nurses on at any school, from what I was told. And the parent just wanted to know why wasn't there any nurses. Second, this is my second time listening to the young man from Central High School, who's the president, I was told, over the Student Voices. And to sit here and listen to what he said about X number of students in that situation, I mean, I know this might sound crazy to some of the ones who have their own personal agendas, but there comes a point in time when you have to have the agenda of God Almighty instead of your own personal agenda. And his agenda and his will is to take care of the children. I mean, some of the things we're discussing about using X amount of dollars, that has nothing to do with addressing the needs of those students at Central High School. That need needs to be addressed as soon as possible, considering the situation. And third, I'm not going to hold it too long. The last couple of meetings I addressed the athletic program. along with the student bus drivers, the union and all of that. But the track, all those teams, they all should have brand-new uniforms. You shouldn't have to have fundraisers when you have money to get uniforms for all the children in athletics. The girls' basketball program, I will continue to say that no one wanted to address those issues. And for that whole staff should have been fired 10 years ago with the amount of talent coming through this city in the girls' program.
30 seconds.
Now, whether or not we address it, if we don't and make the changes, the only one that should be coaching that team is Genesee Bishop. The rest should have been gone 10 years ago. Thank you.
Trustee Gomez?
I'm sorry, the next speaker is Therese Bibbs.
My name is Reverend Therese Bibbs, 3810 Butternut Street, East Chicago, Indiana. I count it a privilege and an opportunity to be able to stand before you today. I was born and raised in East Chicago. I attended the old Franklin Elementary School, Block Junior High, and now I am a 1991 graduate of East Chicago Central High School. I stand before you today representing the 579 supporters that signed a petition to keep Principal Abraham Brown and other EC alumni in their current positions. Principal Brown and these alumni have ties to this community, and that is what is needed. When I was in school, the teachers and administrators were from the area in which they served. When you work from an area in which you are from, you can understand the concerns that the people have in the city. There are concerns in this community that we need to address instead of changing positions. The key to making our high school and all our schools better is to become one with the community in which we live. The parents and relatives need to be involved in the children's education. It's time that we come together as a team, the schools and administration, and work together for the betterment of our children. Our children deserve better. Principal Brown has made some headway at East Chicago Central High School. Let him and the other EC Central alumni continue to do their work. I thank you for your attention and time, and I pray that God will continue to shine down on you and bless you. Thank you.
Helen Steinbeck.
Helen Steinbach, 5207 East 73rd Avenue, Maryville, Indiana. Got a lot on my mind tonight. My big thing that I've been speaking about when I come up and speak is the fact that our athletic department has not found coaches for our students for the fall. I think we only have one coach installed right now. And then all those other sports that happen in the wintertime that the kids practice for and do things in the summertime, there's no coaches listed for that yet. So what do we need to do? Is there somebody that needs to be held accountable for this, or what's going on? I also am concerned about the pre-K teachers not knowing where they're going and who they're going to be teaching and what their program is going to be. So we need to get something into place for that and make sure that that's a matter of importance. And there was one more thing, and I just lost it. I would like to know if we have a publication date for when the next policy committee is, so that we can make sure that those things that need to be given input to the policy committee are given, because there's some things on there that really need to be fixed. Thank you.
Sean Hillier.
Sean Hillier, 3148 Duluth Street. I'm the head boys track and field coach and the head boys cross country coach. I heard that someone said that our sports programs weren't successful, so I wanted to come here and highlight some of our stories. We had a hurdler this year who, for the majority of the season, was the top hurdler in the state. At regionals, he fell along with many others. And you know the first thing he did? After seeing his hopes of state, slip by and being injured, the first thing he did was get up and help his fellow competitors. And what we do is we teach character, and I appreciate the shout out he got from you. Thank you. Another one was salutatorian this year. Not every kid who plays sports is going to be a state qualifier. Some do it for fun. Some do it to get out of the house. Some do it to put on their college application. And this individual got into an Ivy League, So for me as a coach, that's a win. Another one was the Lilly Scholarship recipient. That's someone who was going through a lot of personal struggles. They felt like they had no one to turn to, and they came to me for help. And helping them achieve their dreams is the proudest moment of my coaching career. And so many of our kids feel like they're not going to make it, that nobody cares, that they don't have anyone to turn to. And us coaches and teachers, we're the people they come to. And when I try to convey this to someone up there who doesn't look at people when they speak, when I tried to tell them that our kids, there's mental health issues they're dealing with, they lack health care. When I told you this, you said, well, coach, they just ain't got it. And I personally thought that was a terrible thing to have said. If you feel that way about East Chicago, about our students, why are you here? If your goal was to help our kids, why do you not come to the coaches, the teachers, the deans, the principals, and say, hey, how do I help you do your job better? Instead of just try to clean house and bring in your people. Because it's not about what you could give to East Chicago, it's about what you could take from it. And that's not right. And another subject I wanted to touch on was the
3 minutes are up. 3 minutes are up. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Pastor Wade.
Pastor Wade?
I am, as again, Reverend J.C. Wade Jr., East Chicago, 2014 Cardinal Drive. I wanted to ask a question because the last meeting, I presented a proposal to do something with the young men in Central High School. I'm waiting to hear back from the board. The second thing is, on my way to this meeting tonight, I made a decision because I prayed. I'd like all of you all to stand in the audience with you. Everybody in the audience, would you stand? I gave you something when you came in. Would you help me read it? Would you? Will you help me read it? All right, let's go. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. You all asked for some guidance, direction. Here's the way we should go. God bless you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Pastor Kelly Williams.
All right, good evening to the board. My name is Pastor Kelly Williams, pastor of Greater Destiny Bible Church, East Chicago resident, 4718 Magoon Avenue in East Chicago. Just want to preface my ask with just a statement. How fair is it to not only the teachers, the students, but the administrators, that in the course of 60 days, our schools will start, and we don't have administrators in place? How fair is it for people to have to spend the summer where they should be vacationing, planning for the next school year, and to have a young man that is a pillar in our community like Abram Brown have questions in his head whether he's going to be able to feed his family or not? It's not fair. It's unprofessional. And if we're going to talk about changing a culture and an environment and making changes in our city for the better and talk about professional, we got to stop arguing over things that don't matter and focusing on things that do matter. Now, let me hold the hand of my statement and say, I am looking forward with a jubilant anticipation to be a part of this this coming together on the, say the name of it, strategic planning, because the community wants to be a part of it. And I'm here tonight representing not just myself, but a lot of the ministers here in our community and the faith community. Now, my last thing I want to share is, for 15 years, I put on the Wild Fest here in East Chicago. It's a back-to-school fest. We put on, it's totally free to all the residents of our city. We petition out to School City every year, every board member. We're asking you all for your participation, your collaboration, and your presence there. We want to pray with you. We want you to be in the environment. You are not just board members. You're not just administrators. You don't wear that hat all the time. You are a person. And there are stories in this room that you will never find out unless you get amongst the people. Please, please, I'm begging. I've been doing it for 15 years. This is 16. And it's not been with the support of the School City. Would you all please work in collaboration with us? Help us take this fest to the next level. Let's show a cohesive relationship between the School City and the faith community, where we can right some of the wrongs of our past. Bishop Grant was just standing up here a few minutes ago, and you're talking about a pastor that's been in this city over 20 years, but he was arrested for coming into these schools. Let's right some of these wrongs, bring him to the table, the vast knowledge that he has, and start working to move the School City forward.
Elizabeth Trinidad.
Elizabeth Trinidad, 6830 Grand Avenue. You know what, at this point, I think I'm feeling just like Diana was last week. I have everything, every single comment I had, I think went out the window. All the issues that I thought I was gonna address, I can't even speak at this point. All I can say is, I understand you guys have policies, you guys wanna update and all that, and I have nothing negative to say about that. I just feel like you guys are doing it at the wrong time. We got more important things going on, and the more important things are the kids. I feel like these policies, if you guys had to update them or have to update them, should have been updated a long time ago. So another thing, I don't know the issue with the Lysol wipes or whatever it is, but I just feel like this. When you're too focused on something so simple like that, that's more important than kids, that's a problem. So whoever it is that needs to be apologized to, I apologize, because at the end of the day, parents, every single parent that has a student that goes to that school has to buy all this stuff anyways, and that's how 90% of the times y'all have this. So at the end of the day, you complain about some wipes. So whoever it is that needs to be apologized to, I apologize on his behalf, because obviously he doesn't have the guts to do it.
Keisha Daniels.
Not gonna be bad. My name is Akeisha Daniels, and I live at 414. I don't live there no more because it's not there. I live at 4719 Cary Street, East Chicago. First, I want to say to Mr. Brown, Mr. Bailey, Ms. Campbell, Mr. Sanders, that I appreciate you all for all the hard work you all did. And I pray that you all stay where you are because I think that the school needs you. I did a little research on Mr. Abrego about this beyond textbooks. Yeah, I wasn't happy with the things that I read about.
Let's try to refrain from saying names, please. 'Cause we're-
Got you. Okay. I did a little research on this beyond textbooks that was first he who is unnamed. It was done in Arizona and Colorado. I read about the different things that you told the people there, and the same things that you were telling them there in Arizona are the same things that we are finding out you are saying here in East Chicago. I attended your very first meeting at the library here in the harbor, and you gave a whole presentation about your history, your life, everything. I tried to speak with you, but I guess I wasn't the person that you wanted to speak with because I've never received anything back from you or Ms. Ondas. I had a meeting with her back in, I believe, September, October, before the school year started. I'm still waiting on the answers back from that. I was a little bit concerned about finding out that you receive an $800 to $900 stipend every time you come to a school. I didn't think that was fair because that money needs to be left in the school. I'm also finding out that you had an appraisal for $12,000 done of a building, which I think wasn't fair because that money needs to stay in the school. You need parents on this board. I'll repeat again. You need a parent from the elementary, you need a parent from the middle school, and you need a parent from a high school here on this board sitting every day so that we can take the information back to the parents. I also wanted to tell he who was unnamed, you and your administrator, I don't know who she is, you all went to Central High School and you gave out some letters to the seniors. You called them all down to the auditorium day before spring break. As a parent of a student there, I was very upset with what you did. You called all the seniors down to the auditorium and they were given letters with the F, if they had any F grades that were highlighted in a green highlighter. Don't ever do that before spring break. We had a lot of children that were suicidal and that were really pressured in trying to get their grades up before the end of their senior year. As a parent, don't ever give my child, I can only speak for my child, anything without my permission. Thank you.
Diana Darden, 7415 William Street, Maryville, Indiana. As always, I always stand on behalf of the alumni. And I was reading an article concerning the superintendent where in Colorado, where they said that the teachers union said that he was unable to stop the high rate of turnovers in the district, especially in the central office, as well as they felt like he came in with good intentions, was unable to earn the trust and the relationships with the community. To me, games are being played at every meeting. And you not being clear and not answering nobody's question, you ain't gonna never gain the community's trust with the things that are going on. Again, I say I'm speaking on behalf of the alumni. Because I feel like we thought we were coming today to hear about the reassignment of the staff. Y'all blew us off, that's all that happened today. I'm not saying personally, but that changed off the agenda, Sunday? It was on there Friday and it wasn't on there today. My thing is, we need to know what's going on in the district. The people, the kids, the community need to know. So I say this, if you remove alumni, you are basically sending signals out to future alumni and alumni that are here to not come back, to ever pour back into where you came from, and that you are not appreciated. And I'm gonna continue to fight for them. Board members, listen to what I say. When it comes time to vote on this reassignment thing, I'm going to say this. Since I can't say names, I'm going to go this way. Thank you for questioning everything that needs to be questioned. Next. You sat on this side with us. And how quickly it looked like things changed. And I hope that what I heard the other day ain't true. That we will call some MFs that will not come back to the meeting, but we here. The next one in line, you an alumni too, so you should be fighting for the other alumni that's sitting in this room as well. Next, you got an election coming up next year, and I still got your back. Everybody in here, your church, your community, your family and alumni gonna come here and be with you every time you ask for his resignation. And lastly, you should change the agenda to people's personal agenda.
Stacy Winfield. Stacy Winfield.
Stacy Winfield, 4106 Dearborn. I do live, born and raised in East Chicago, and I once sat over there. So I got 3 issues to say. First of all, I was one of the first elected school board members, and I sat over there. But I didn't sit over there as a stepping stone because I worked as an employee for 13 years before I even got on the school board. I'm addressing this school board trustee that addressed Coach, myself, because we were the ones that were sitting here when the meeting went on last year. I did, and I continue to do for the community. So this is nothing new. I don't need a stepping stone, because I know where I come from and I don't forget. I'm talking, and I'm gonna go into your agenda. You had an agenda on the website on Sunday that talked about the approval of the assignments for the employees. It was 4.02, approval of staff reassignments. It's off. When I sat over there, if it was on the agenda on Sunday, it should have been on here, amended today to be removed. Protocol. I'm glad to see the secretary is here. And board members, please pay attention, because I paid attention when I was here. She wasn't here. And I seen someone else sitting in that seat. Second in command as a secretary that sits in that office is not there. But you jump into another department and have another secretary sitting here. I was born on human rights. My grandmother was the first African-American human rights director. She instilled in my family the equal rights. Practice what you preach, because it's not here.
Sherry Adams. Sherry Adams.
Say what?
Mercedes Taylor.
No, excuse me. Sherry Adams?
Yes, Sherry Adams.
Thank you.
First of all, I just want to apologize to the audience. My name is Sherry Adams. I'm at 443 East Chicago Avenue. And I want to apologize to the audience members because I've been spending my evenings at home watching The Equalizer and SVU. But I should have been here listening to you. I thought this city was dead. I really did. I'd given up on this city because I thought it was dead. Thank you all for reminding me that this city's not dead. To reach back a second from what that one young lady said about the Lysol wipes, 50 or 60 packages or boxes coming up missing. I understand that things have to be kept in order. People shouldn't take things without permission. I get all of that. But did you not hear that young man say that 300 children are homeless? Take those Lysol wipes, give it to those babies, so wherever they're finding a place to lay their head, they can clean it as best they can. Did you not hear that child say 300 children are homeless? I worked 13 years as a medical assistant, 6 with an orthopedic surgeon. A young man came in from a boys' home. He'd had an altercation, he'd broken his wrist. As he sat there and I triaged him, he told me how in a couple of weeks he'd be 18 and he'd be aging out, and he was terrified. That child wept in front of me. I left the room and told my coworker, You have to go in there. I can't do it. I couldn't watch that baby be devastated. But I went back in there long enough to give that child my phone number, and I told him whatever I can do to help you. If I can help you find a place, if I can get you some towels and washcloths, blankets and a pillow, I'll do that for you. We have to refocus on what's important. I've heard so many people come to me and ask for my vote and tell me that their primary issue was children. But you turned right around and did something else. I am so glad that I listened to that voice inside my mind, which is the Holy Spirit that told me don't vote for them. They don't mean what they say. They don't care about these babies. Do better, you all. Do better. Thank you.
Mercedes Taylor.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mercedes Taylor. I reside at 4320 Parrish Avenue. I am an East Chicago Central alumni, class of 96. I work closely with Diana Darden in the committee with the alumni. And the whole objective of that alumni committee, and like she said, we run a page of over 4,700 people. We want to just instill the Cardinal spirit. It's gone. That Cardinal spirit, that Cardinal pride that we had, the whole objective of that committee is to go back into our schools and say, hey, this is not what it really is. But you guys are making it hard. You guys are making it really hard. You know, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity for just to allow me to express myself here a little bit, share my heart. But, you know, I find it interesting that as the public has been coming out more and more and continue to come out, and I thank you guys for that, and I take responsibility and accountability as well. But it's interesting how things like policies like that are making it on the agenda about public speaking, about labels, about titles. Yet we still, again, I'm echoing the staff reassignments, not having coaches. Like, I understand policies are crucial to operating a board, but it's responsibility to prioritize those policies. I don't see the priority here. And what I really wanted to speak on was the alternative school. You know, again, I'm sorry about bringing up these silly wipes, but it's the same board that didn't communicate to the board that the alternative school was going to be West Side. So communication is definitely an issue. But I think the superintendent said in about 3 meetings ago, when the question was asked, how is this going to work? The response was a half a day, 3 hours for high schoolers, and then 3 hours for middle school. And the response to that, even though we didn't agree with that, the response to that was because that was the state minimum. Our kids do not need the bare minimum. All you're doing, we're putting these kids in alternative school is placing another label on top of them. Well, labels and titles are important, right? Let's talk about those labels that you're going to place on these kids. They're going to be outcasted from the rest of the city. I mean, back in the day, we had tough skin. So we have kids today that are still getting bullied for being in the Z-Wing back then, okay? But they have tough skin. They were able to deal with it. But like someone just said, these kids are suicidal now. They're a whole different breed. You label them and outcast them, it's not good because you guys don't even have a plan as to how are you going to identify this kid for this issue, and this kid is a behavior issue, and this kid is an academic issue. You're just going to throw them all in one building for 3 hours because that's the bare minimum? Then I'm sorry, if that is the bare minimum, then we don't need you here. Then I echo the resignation motion that was placed on there because we need more than the bare minimum. We need you to go beyond the textbooks and beyond that table and do what you have to do. Thank you.
My name is Bishop Tavis Grant. I've been given this time. She gave me the time.
Sorry, I didn't.
She gave me her time. I'm Bishop Tavis Grant. I'm the pastor of the Greater First Baptist Church. I'm also the National Executive Director of the Rainbow Push Coalition, 50,000 members across the United States. But first and foremost, I'm a resident of this city for nearly 30 years. My son was raised by that black man over there in that corner, Coach Abe Brown. Statistics say that when children of color see one of their own in the classroom, just one of them, they have a 13% chance of graduating from high school and a 30% chance of going to college and a 40% chance of graduating from college. So this purging that is happening in communities of color, like East Chicago, is outrageous and unacceptable. And Mr. President, it is unethical. It may not be illegal, but it's unethical. East Chicago is a community of families. It is a community of ethnicities like no other community in the United States. And the whole idea of saying and talking about transparency and changing agendas in the middle of the night, and then wanting community members to accept it as business as usual is unacceptable. As Pastor Kelly has indicated, I've come to these meetings in years past, and I have been arrested. I think I was arrested by him. I like to reserve my time. I like to reserve my time. I like to reserve my time. We must meet the needs of these children. There should be a space for a student to sit on that council and their voice be heard, because that's how I got to where I got to. Somebody gave me an opportunity to be heard, and I'm still standing today. Let's give our children every chance that they deserve, because this is not your city, this is our city.
Nettie Collins. Nettie Collins. Nettie Collins.
Have a seat, buddy.
Samuel Smith Jr., 3831 Main Street here in East Chicago, the spouse of that lady over there in the corner, Diane Smith. I didn't leave this building for 5 minutes. I ran home because I was cooking for the dog and forgot that food was outside. So I went home. The phone was blowing up. Get back here. The president is disrespecting your wife for the second time. I've allowed her to go with you. I ain't gonna do nothing. I've allowed her to go out of town with you. You all stop and eat at restaurants. You all talk. I don't know what your problem is with her. I don't know when it started. But don't you ever, in public, disrespect that one again. Don't you ever. I don't do it, and I'm not going to allow no other man. Every man that's in here that has a wife, stand up. Have I said anything wrong? No. I'm asking the men who are married. Have I said anything wrong? Okay. The only thing that I'm choking back is not to cuss. I'm going to say it again. Sit down. Thank y'all. Bless y'all. Thank y'all. Don't ever. You had the unmitigated gall to wait till I left the room. You didn't have the gonads to do it while I was here. Then you're going to apologize to her after she leaves the room. You're not a man.
Nyla Williams. Nyla Williams.
James Newsom, 4223 Alcott Avenue. Everything that I really wanted to talk about today is pretty much went over. Our principal being gone, our deans being gone, our teachers, our coaches, everything, the 300 homeless students at this very moment. What I want to know, the one thing I want to know is how long is it going to take you to help? How long are we going to cry? Do we need to start getting on our hands and knees and beg for a change in our communities? Like, I don't understand. I know I'm a little young, but this makes absolutely no sense to me at all. How many of you up there can say that you've honestly went to the school and helped students, not just in policies that you've maybe made or took participation on, but buying shoes, taking kids home after practice? I can see many of these people in the audience right now that have done it for me and many of my friends. How many of you have done that? Will you ever do it? Think about that. You say you're for the students, and I still, as a student, have not seen a single change that benefits me. So please, I ask, as a young man of this community, please do better.
Hi, Ms. Green.
Well, you yield? Okay, he yield. Akeisha Daniels again, 4719 Cary Street. I am coming here to ask for the Beyond textbook. I want the state records for this program from 2022 to 2023. I would like my own personal copy with the state seal on it to show all your data that was given for 2022, 2023, because it's not anywhere that I can find it. And I had a child that attended your schools that you all run. So I would like a copy of it. I also would like to address being called MFer when I left this building the last meeting. I felt like that was very, very disrespectful to all the parents, the staff, and the community members that came here. And you all demand respect from us, and I think that you all should respect us as well. I've never been an MFer, but the next time I'm called one, please put a miss in front of it.
Gilda Orange.
And I apologize to the ministers. I apologize. Yeah. All right,
Reverend Grant and the board and Reverend Wade, Reverend Kelly, Reverend Johnson, any other ministers in here? All right now. Well, first of all, no, you'll need to step out this time because I'll probably get a letter. But my name is Gilda Orange, 3909 Evergreen Street. You know where I live because you sent me that letter telling me that I shouldn't be talking. And saying the things, saying your names, which this is freedom of speech. You can say anybody's name. I don't know where you guys came up with that. ACLU say you have no right to tell a person that cannot call you by your name. If they're calling you out of your name, or if they're threatening you, that's one thing. But they have a right to address you because you are elected. The superintendent is paid by the taxpayers, so they have a right to address you. But since you don't want no names, I won't call none. The two trustees that called Bill Dolan, you were in a rush to call Bill Dolan to make sure that they knew about Vanessa and the wipes, because it was an election year. Then you had your cronies come up and they talked about how sinful it was, how horrible it was that she had taken the wipes. Now you find out through all this investigation, y'all paid the extra money, that it was nobody stole no wipes. But you still don't want to apologize because that's not in you, and that's fine and dandy. Because what I think about, what I thought about you before this meeting and what I think about you now is two different things. Because for you to turn around and say that you would not apologize, that's not being a man at all. That's not even being a Christian. So maybe you ain't going to church. I don't know. But some ministers in here, they'll pray over you when you get ready to leave. Mr. Brown is here tonight. Can you please stand, Mr. Brown? Now, it was a comment made that he didn't show up, so of course we ain't gonna be for him. And we tried to tell you that it didn't make a difference about him showing up because people were showing up for him, but he's here tonight. And he'll never have to say a word because I'm hoping he got himself a real good attorney because y'all know this is not right. And to me, this is going on the racial color line of making sure that the black male does not exist in the school system. And you guys are doing that. You turn around and then talking about this attorney to school, and who you gonna put over there, the black and brown kids? So y'all gonna make sure they go over there, and nobody can deal with them, or they miss too much school, or they get in an argument, you send them to an alternative school so you can get extra money from the state, because that's what it's all about. And you just create an alternative school. It never worked. We've tried, and it has never worked.
Lord is
Thank you, Trustee Corn.
Next speaker.
Watch them four in the middle. It's racial.
Promise.
Once again, Lourdes Hicks, 512 Grove Street. I came here tonight for the same reason most of these people are here. 3 topics. First and foremost, Abe Brown. I met that man when my son with special needs was in Central High School, and man, did that kid give everybody a headache. That man never gave up on my son. Never put him out of school. Never went to suspend him or take him home early. He stood and he put up with that kid, and God knows he's a saint for that, okay? My son was moderately mentally challenged, and the answer from Central was, put him in alternative school. I didn't like alternative school then. I don't like it now. It's a waste. All you're doing is putting those kids in a segregated place where their emotion, mental state, and self-esteem is already low. So putting them there, you're just kicking them when they're down. I will say this. Most of you in here know me. I'm an activist, and I'm a community advocate. If that man does not stay at Central as the principal, you have my word, I will go back to my ways of bringing the media, protesting at the schools, and doing whatever I can to keep that man at Central High School. Thank you.
Mr. President, that was the last speaker.
All right. Our next date and time is Monday, July 3rd at 6 p.m.
Everybody make sure they be here now.
Is there a motion? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move for adjournment.
Motion made by Trustee Gomez. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second that motion. Everybody make sure they be here.
Trustee Gomez.
Yes.
Trustee Smith. Trustee Hernandez Orange. Trustee Hernandez Orange.
I know how to get them, boy.
Oh.
Oh, y'all ain't talking to her? She got her name on the list?
Oh, sorry.
Was there one?
I apologize. There was one person,
I told y'all need to be here.
Chelsea Lott.
Chelsea Lott.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm kind of here to rehash an issue. Chelsea Lott, 4426 Arbutus Lane. I met with some of you all following the last meeting and introduced myself, but now I'm doing it more formally. I am East Chicago Central's student body president, and I wanted to follow up on how to implement the student body rep on the board policy.
I really want to know how I can move forward with that process because I recently sat in a meeting with our school's director of nutrition along with James and Ms. Daniels, and it was so informative. And I feel like I got a lot of really valuable information that I could give back to my peers and everything because these people, they really do have concerns. They really do want their voices heard. And as their student body representative, I feel that being able to sit with you all and meet with you all, not even regularly, just at any point in time, would be like really helpful to be able to, bridge this gap between the students and administrators. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we had a motion and a second for adjournment. Do you want to continue that list?
Trustee Hernandez.
Yes.
Trustee Gibson King.
Oh, yes.
Chairman Rodriguez.
Yes, that concludes our new session.